Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Geeks from the Multiverse. Just a couple of guys talking about geeky shit. And we're going to get right into it. So we're going to be doing an episode on vampires. That's right, we're in October. We're going to do a Halloween themed series. So we're going to be doing a couple of different episodes, but they're all spooky, scary shit that we're doing. So stay tuned. Hey, what's going on, guys? We got a great episode because we're going to be talking about some stuff that I enjoy. I don't know so much if John here enjoys, but I am one of your hosts, Matt, and with me is
Johnny Boy up in his house. No, I'm just kidding.
You're actually in your house, though. So.
That's true. It actually is my house. Yes. No. No. So I know Matt says that, yes, typically I know that I'm not like a scary movie, kind of individual and whatnot. I don't mind. I never said I didn't mind Halloween, right? So I think growing up, it was like, it kind of sucked. And this is where I say this, boys and girls. It's like, I grew up, of course, yes, I know it was like, 9/11, I'm going to tell you right now, I mentioned this because it's a true story. I remember literally because 9/11 happened, right? So 2001, if you didn't guys know that, if again, the new generation coming out, right? The problem is because 9/11 happened in September, right? So literally a month later, a lot of people were scared because they didn't know if there was going to be things in candy, for example, even though we're talking about years of shit that nobody could have.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been that's always been a thing.
I know it's been a thing, but the problem was my parents were so fucking paranoid. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have been, but it was to the point where basically I was like, well, this is kind of stupid. So as a kid, I basically, when it came to that Halloween, it was ruined for me because I never got the candy. I didn't get to do anything. And I think years afterwards, it was kind of like that same thing. And so for years, it was just like my childhood was kind of ruined for Halloween for me anyways. And it just kind of sucks as I got older because I was like, whatever. Because as a kid, believe it or not, man, I actually dressed up as Scream. I used to have the mask and I was...
Wow, Ghostface, huh?
Ghostface, Ghostface. That's what I did. I even had the knife too as a kid. Like, it was crazy. So like...
You just running around knifing people?
Yeah, I was like, gotcha. So I didn't mind it. And I think it was just, I think as I got older, it just kind of sucked for me. And so like, I never really... I'm not saying I never appreciated it. It was just like I said, like for Wyatt, like my son, it's like, I want him to enjoy it. And I'm not going to, of course I'm going to expect it's candy. Like that's just like every good parent, but... You're damn right. I want to be taking a percentage of whatever he gets, and that's just how it is.
That's just how it is.
But anyways, getting back to the point here. No, I think for the most part, I didn't mind like watching, like the monster movies. I mean, shit, I loved Van Helsing. I know everyone's like, oh, that's kind of stupid. I'm not just saying like that. If they came out with more stuff like that and like the Monster Hunter movies and, that kind of stuff, I mean, I don't mind watching it. I don't mind that. I think it's just more the horror, like, holy shit, right in your face. Like, it just comes out of it. Like, I think it's funny.
Yeah, see, I think, and this is different from my upbringing because, even as a kid, I mean, obviously not as like a little tiny kid, like watching horror movies, but, as, growing up, we were always watching, Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street was one of my mom's favorite. Like, she would literally put the VHS tape, and I'm dating myself here, but
hold on,
she would take the VHS tape, put it in the VCR, play the movie, and then as soon as it finished, she would get up, eject the tape, put it in the rewinder
to watch it again,
and then she would put it right back in and then watch. But she would do that like 3 or 4 times in a row. So it was like, you come home from school and it's like, oh. Yeah,
must have been the third time today, or something.
It was on. But like we always did this, like watching Friday the 13th, and it was like, there were titties in those movies, but we, my parents were always like, oh, cover your eyes, kids, and we did the typical thing that kids do, right?
Ooh,
you kind of like,
oh, I see it.
You kind of peek through the fingers and you see them anyway. So, but that's what, that's kind of what we did growing up. And, I guess the 80s and 90s was a different era. But
and that was the thing. I mean, honestly, like my parents, like what's funny, right? So I actually remind myself of this. Like, I think, because of course my dad, right? So you know him pretty well, of course. And, so he would watch like the Crypt Keeper. Right, so that was his favorite thing at night.
Oh yeah, Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, Tales from the Crypt. So like he'd watch that all the time, and so of course as a kid I'm like, I'd kind of sneak out and I'd be kind of curious to see what he was watching. And so all of a sudden he's like, you got this guy.
That was pretty good, actually.
It is pretty good. I don't know how I remember that, but but it's true. It was roughly what he would do. And
Welcome, kitties.
Yeah, he was a weirdo. He was a weirdo. But then it was funny because I remember, and I know this is kind of stupid. I remember, I think it was Casper, right? Didn't he like make a weird appearance in that like movie real quick? I think he like showed up as like one of the like faces of like in the mirror or whatever. It was kind of random. I know it's kind of random for me to say that, but like I just remember, I guess as a kid, the problem was that my parents never really allowed me to kind of do all that. And I think as I got older, it was just kind of like, it's not that I didn't like, if my parents were like, hey, we're going to watch this, I would probably watch it. I'd be like, okay, let's do it. But they never really did that with me. So I feel like for me, it was just, it kind of got ruined. Like I know for you, it was like the opposite where, I think.
Yeah, we would watch it all the time. So, I mean, it was like when a horror movie came out, like I was so super interested to see it. And even to this day, like if a movie comes out, like a horror movie in particular comes out, like I will at least watch it. Even the stupid B ones that are in like usually Amazon Prime.
You mean like Thanksgiving or something like that? Or something, I don't know, something of the, I can't remember which one.
Like, it's like, they have stupid, I mean, it's like vampire horrors from outer space. I mean, I probably wouldn't watch that one, but I mean, it's like the stupid ass movies, but I will at least watch it once, but most of the, the big named ones, like, the Insidious movies and the Conjurings and, the Nuns, like I'll watch those. I've watched every single Saw, like I'll at least watch them and like enjoy them. But yeah, it's always been a part of my upbringing, but I think like, we've already done an episode on werewolves. You can check that one out. I think we did it around Halloween last year.
It was probably like mid-October, if I'm taking a guess.
But like, you kind of have like the few mythological kind of creatures like werewolves, vampires, ghosts. I think vampires sits right in that popular category. Although I wouldn't say right now vampires are like
they're fading a little bit. I think it's just like, it was like the mid to late, it was like mid to late 2000s, like early maybe 2010s or something like that, where it was
in the 90s they were popular as shit.
Right, I know that with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, shit like that.
Like Lost Boys, From Dusk Till Dawn. I mean, they were popular as shit. Like vampires were very, very popular. And then I think now they just kind of like,
it kind of sizzled. I mean, and I know I'm gonna mention this, man. We just talked about it just a second ago, and I know he doesn't want me to bring it up, but Twilight, right? So this is the problem.
Not a fucking vampire.
No, but you can't say that you didn't watch it. But what I'm saying is that yes, I know everyone's like, oh, it's the fan, girls that are watching it. I mean, some fanboys, I guess, were watching it too. But my thing is like, yes, that was like the popular kind of vampire, trend. Other than that, it was kind of like, you may have had a couple of vampire movies like here and there. Wasn't really like a whole thing. And like, I agree with you, man. A lot of really, and now it's more like you said, like Saw, Insidious, The Conjuring, The Nun, like all, and like Maribel.
If they, if they do vampires, like they don't necessarily come out and say that they're vampires. Like there's a couple shows I can think of. Like one of them is The Strain, where it's more of like a parasite, and I get where they're where they're going with it, but they're vampires. Another movie with Will Smith.
Yeah, I Am Legend.
I Am Legend. Those aren't like zombies. Those are vampires. The book is vampires. Those creatures are vampires. Like that's what they are.
It was
They never explain them that way, though.
No, it's true. But granted, the way they came about was because they found a cure for cancer, and then they, blah blah blah, and went on forward. But yeah, no, I mean that's the thing about today versus way back when. And I know like a really famous one was like Nosferatu, right back in like the early 30s, 40s or whatever. But like other than that, it was like. Like you said, like there's been movies throughout the ages, things like that. But
so let's kind of start with, I guess, like finding what a vampire is, and maybe some history.
History, fine.
Some history, because the term like vampire, basically, I mean, if you don't know what a vampire is, then look at the person next to you and ask them to smack you upside the head. Because I think everybody knows, what a vampire is at this point, but I'm going to explain it anyway. Basically, a vampire is a mythical creature that, gets he feeds on vital essence, which is usually in the form of blood of the living. European folklore vampires were undead, humanoid creatures that often visited loved ones and caused mischief or deaths in the neighborhood which they inhabited while they were alive, which is kind of interesting. I mean, it's
a different take on it.
Yeah, I mean, can I just say, European people are weird. Especially like in the 18th century, like they just.
Well, you and I have figured out, especially with werewolves and shit,
between witches and werewolves, and I mean, we're going to be talking about the same fucking thing with vampires in a minute because they did the same fucking thing.
Well, and I know we may or may not mention this, but like you always think of like Vlad the Impaler, right? So you think of that one as like a more, famous kind of figure in this kind of realm of things, and it was like everyone's like, oh, well, he did this and that. I'm like, well, you know what? Yeah, it was one of those things that did he really do what they say? I mean, granted, we weren't alive back then, but I mean, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. But again, these were just stories. So all this European shit, especially what Matt was talking about with like the witches, the werewolves and this shit, these were just accounts that they've said, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily true.
The term vampire actually was popularized in Western Europe because there were reports of an 18th century mass hysteria of like pre-existing people. Like there was a belief that, cases of basically vampires or corpses were being staked and people being accused of vampirism. So what what would typically kind of happen was if you had a loved one that died, there was so much like mass hysteria about vampires, they would dig up that grave just to stake the corpse.
Well, I mean, because not only that, I mean, you would have to do that, and then my guess is you'd probably have to burn them.
Well, in some cases they did, but more so unlike, werewolves where they didn't, with werewolves, they actually went out and hunted.
No, right.
And so vampire hunts were pretty rare because they didn't really like execute living people. What ended up happening most of the time is if they accused somebody of being a vampire, they basically would desecrate the body, like staking, beheading, burning. And that was just to prevent them from rising after they die from becoming a vampire.
I mean, and it's funny, like, how when we just talked about, like, how these versions are different in how they're just saying, okay, well, they just rise from the dead and they just somehow become a vampire, right? So, like, when we think of, like, modern day or kind of like what we've seen so far, right? It's more like, it's kind of hard because I can think of, like, people just, get this kind of gene inside them and let's say they're a vampire, but the only way to become a vampire is, you have to basically get bitten by said vampire or something like that to then get the same, kind of genes and like, get that same, wanting the need for blood and all this other shit. So it's like, which one is true? I don't know. Is it, you die and then you become a vampire or is it, that? I don't know.
Yeah, I think there was just a lot of, fear. And, obviously back in the 17th and 18th centuries, there was really a lack of understanding between disease and death. And that's where you get like these people just desecrating, corpses because they were really they were aimed at preventing the dead from harming the living. And so like witch hunts and werewolf, like they would go out and actually physically hunt them. And then like witches, like we know this from Salem, Mass, like they would burn them alive.
Oh yeah.
But the fear of like vampires was an actual phenomenon that actually was a thing. And there's a couple of cases. There's, I think three that I've written down here. I'm going to try to pronounce this guy's name. I might just call him Peter.
Hey, Peter.
Polagowitz. Peter Polagowitz.
That's probably the best way you could say that. But
probably, yes. I'm just going to call him Peter because Polagowitz is a mouthful.
Actually, no, it's Polagowitz if I had to be a guess. But yeah, that's just me. Go ahead.
Polagowitz.
Polagowitz. Polagowitz. How you doing, Polagowitz?
Hey, Peter.
Hey, Peter. Let me talk to you, Peter, for a minute.
So 1725 is when he lived. He lived in Serbia. After his death, Peter was accused of returning from the grave and killing 9 villagers. His body was exhumed, and according to reports, was found with fresh blood in his mouth. And he was subsequently staked through the heart and burned.
So let's just start with this. Okay. So I just find it interesting that they said his body was exhumed and according to reports was found with fresh blood in his mouth. Do you realize that, I mean, you could have put anything, I'm just going to say it, right? So you could have put I don't know, let's say a pig, right? You could have just took the pig's blood and maybe put it in his mouth and said, oh, sorry, he's he's one of those guys, you know what I mean?
I almost wonder we're talking 1725. So it's not like you have DNA.
No, I right.
Like you testing or you really know anything about why there would be blood, but
you can hide that shit though.
But did they even do any of the stuff that we do today? That would be really my question.
Well, I'm not
did they take out all the organs and remove the blood from his body? Because if they just buried this guy, then it's possible
that he could have had blood in his mouth.
That he could have had blood in his mouth because he still had blood in his body.
Well, and I don't really know exactly when, certain things just.
It's not like this guy's going to be. It's not like this guy's going to be digging himself out of a grave, right? Killing 9 people, and then go, "Hey, I'm going to bury myself all over again."
And then, by the way, I'm just going to have blood in my mouth while I'm at it.
Because they exhumed his body, so I'm assuming if he jumped back in the hole and went back in his casket,
he's like, "Okay, now go ahead and bury me, guys."
He's got to have somebody that would have to bury him because he can't do it himself.
And this is my point, guys. This is why we're both saying that
it's just fear, fear and paranoia.
It's mass hysteria. It's just not understanding.
There's another guy from Serbia, Arnold Paoli. I'm assuming is how you probably would say it.
Paoli, maybe, I don't know.
Paoli.
Ole. No.
So Arnold, another case in Serbia, he was believed to have become a vampire after his death.
I'm wondering if he was infected by the same guy.
When several people in his village died mysteriously, his body was dug up, found undecayed, and a stake was driven through his body, and the case sparked much of the vampire hysteria in Habsburg Empire.
So what I find interesting is that a year later from this guy, this roughly the same thing, but this caused more hysteria.
It doesn't necessarily say how long,
how long
between when he died and when the people in the village died mysteriously that they actually dug him up. But I'm assuming there must have been some time in between because they found his body undecayed. And it just kind of was it's a year later. You would think the same way that they buried, hey, Peter, they would bury Arnold as well. But maybe he was wrapped. I'm assuming maybe they wrapped him and then they put him in the ground. I have no idea, but it's
well, I mean, if it's a typical death, I mean, it probably even this, again, 1700s. I mean, just how we normally would do things. I would even say back then they didn't really. They probably had coffins, but not
Is there a winter in Serbia?
I would assume there probably is.
I would assume there would be. So maybe when he died, it was actually winter and it was colder.
Maybe. And
it probably preserved the body.
There
could be many explanations.
Well, think about it like this, right? Realistically, most people wouldn't be buried in a coffin unless you were rich and some sort, right? Because typically, it would either be a very shitty wooden coffin, or basically they just throw your body.
Well, that's what I was imagining, but
that's what I'm thinking. It's the only 2 things that I could see. I just couldn't see this person just be fuck it, we're gonna put him in some really extravagant thing. I don't know. This is all Serbia.
Yeah, we got a couple more. There's one in Croatia. It's actually 100 years before that. Jurgrando.
I love when you're pronouncing these names.
I know you love it because I'm probably wrong, but
it's fine. I'm just gonna let you do it.
Jurgrando, 1672 in Croatia,
but apparently it was called Istria.
Istria, yes. He's considered one of the earliest documented cases of vampirism. He died in 1656.
So that's funny how it's almost a 20-year difference. Almost. I would say like a 15, 20-year difference, whatever.
Yeah. Villagers believed he had returned from the grave, terrorized the living, and according to local reports, he would appear at night, knocking on doors, and those who heard the knock would die shortly after. He was accused of visiting his widow at night and assaulting her.
Oh, interesting.
And the outcome, after years of fear and several mysterious deaths, villagers, along with a priest, exhumed his body. They found Grando's corpse perfectly preserved, which they took as a sign of vampirism. His head was severed with a saw, and the vampire attacks supposedly ceased after this.
So, I mean, again, I don't know exactly how.
It's weird, man.
It is weird.
It's a weird story, and it's like how. I mean, like I said, you have to really look at, was it colder? How did they preserve the body when they buried it? There has to be a scientific explanation of why he's preserved.
There could have been a lot of things, and the problem back then is that they didn't have anything to really do anything like now. The interesting part though is I love how this says it's one of the earliest, and the reason why I say it is because I thought Vlad the Impaler, which was also 200 years, almost 200 years before this guy, technically. I thought Vlad the Impaler, granted, I know he was technically like a dictator, blah blah blah. He was kind of like a.
Well, I know he was the inspiration for, Dracula, but I don't think he was actually accused of vampirism.
I thought he was. And the only reason why I say this is because they had some accounts and some other things, and he did some weird shit. But I didn't know if, he, was technically one of the earliest or not. You know what I mean? I figured you'll look up this guy real quick. But I'll go on with this next dude because this guy... Oh, actually, nope. Oh, wait, did you already talk about the outcome? Oh, you did. Never mind. Just kidding.
The one from Croatia, but Mercy Brown would be the last one.
Okay, so the last guy, Mercy Brown, yes. So this guy's from Exeter, Rhode Island. Good old the US of A. So,
I believe it's a her.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just kidding. A her. Never mind. So anyways, so in 1892, so this was, quite a couple hundred years later from the last person. So this one, the case of Mercy Brown, is one of the most famous examples of vampire panic in America. And during an outbreak of tuberculosis, known as consumption at the time, Mercy Brown died of tuberculosis in 1892, and her family had already lost several family members to the disease. When her brother Edwin fell ill, the community believed that a dead family member was draining his life force. The outcome, Mercy's body was exhumed, no shit, and despite being dead for months, it was found in a relatively preserved state. This was taken as a sign of vampirism. Her heart and liver were removed and burned, and the ashes were mixed into a potion for Edwin to drink in an attempt to cure him. And guess what? He died shortly after. So
no shit.
So this is where I find it interesting. So you fuckheads decide, hey, you know what? We're all going to believe it's vampirism because even though we didn't know what TB was back then, we just thought, oh, you know what? Fuck it. We're just going to make sure that she's dead and everything else is inside of her. Just give this guy, your brother, here's a fucking cure, maybe. And then shortly thereafter, no shit, he fucking dies. Like, come on, geniuses. Like, I know this is the kind of shit, man. Like, I just don't, I understand.
Yeah, it's like we keep saying. I mean, it's fear and paranoia and hysteria and people just following this thing of like, oh, well, the body was pretty well preserved. But like, what I find interesting is like, they didn't remove the head. It doesn't say that they staked her. All it says is they removed her heart and her liver and they were burned. So they didn't burn the body, but just the heart and the liver. And then obviously the ashes of the heart and the liver were probably what were mixed in the potion.
Right, which isn't really going to help in that situation, but okay, let's just fucking give it to him anyways.
He probably died. I mean, obviously he died of tuberculosis. That's realistically what Edwin died of.
And not because of her.
And it probably wasn't very healthy for him to drink ashes of his dead sister. Like
that makes total sense. Yeah. And go ahead, Matt, because I feel like you got something to tell me now.
Well, like I said before, I mean, he was never.
Are we talking about Vlad?
Yeah, Vlad the Impaler was obviously not a vampire, but he did, like, his father and him were members of Order of the Dragon.
Okay.
But when Bram Stoker, everybody probably, if you know vampires or anything of that nature, like you know who Bram Stoker is because he wrote Dracula, or she wrote Dracula, whoever it is. But Bram Stoker wrote Dracula. But the idea behind Dracula was Vlad the Impaler and his kind of like legendary cruelty to create kind of that vampire legend of who Dracula was. So I think that's where that connection between Vlad the Impaler and being a vampire kind of exists.
Yeah, I originally thought Vlad was, or at least accused of vampirism. I thought that was the case, but clearly I guess I was wrong. I really thought that was kind of the case in that, regard. But whatever.
Yeah. So, obviously vampires are generally, unless you're, one of those freaks that think you're a vampire and you drink real blood and you're gross. But they're usually fictitious characters, fictitious like entities. Like we just got done kind of going through, like obviously in 18th century Europe, like they believe these vampires were real, sort of like, I guess the chupacabra would be like another kind of fictitious character.
I mean,
like
yeah,
nobody has ever seen.
Well, they have apparently
like fucking Bigfoot or Sasquatch, like people like.
Hey, don't be talking about Sasquatch. There's still believers out there, man. There's a growing entity of people that believe that they found Yetis or Sasquatches.
Nessie.
Hey, you know what? And apparently,
Loch Ness monster. Yeah,
I'm just gonna say it. I kid you not, so Lake George, okay, in New York, right? It's actually not too far. It's about 6 hours or a few hours from here. Anyways, they also have a legend where it's just similar to Nessie. They have one called Champy, which is literally Lake Champlain.
Oh yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of it.
It's the same thing, but I'm just saying, guys. My point is,
it's just a smaller. It's like the little brother or something. Yeah.
My point is, guys, is
little sister.
The people are believers out there, man.
There's some weird fucking people, but I think there, from what I, was reading, and there's like different mythologies when it comes to vampires. But there's kind of like two main mythologies that I've been able to kind of find and kind of define. I'll take the first one because I actually kind of dig this first one. But the very kind of first mythology that does exist right now is, if you look at the Bible story between Cain and Abel.
See, I find that interesting how Christianity has somehow brought this into play.
Yeah, it's one of the bigger mythologies that exists, other than Count Dracula being like, Dracula, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But Cain, who's also known as the Dark Father. So in this,
sorry, hold on. Is it the Dark Father?
He's the Dark Father.
Well, no, it's just like it's like, hey, we don't have the Light Father, we have the Dark Father.
So
go ahead.
In the story, obviously, God punishes Cain for killing his brother Abel. God brands him with a mark and banishes him to wander in darkness, which is called the land of Nod, N-O-D. And when he's in Nod, he meets someone named Lilith and drinks her blood.
Lovely.
So after Cain partakes of Lilith's blood, he's visited by 3 angels in a vision. And these angels were basically angels of God, and they offered Cain a chance to repent for the murder of his brother. But Cain rebuffed them out of pride, seeing his actions as justified, which I think we can all kind of say, like, sure, like that tracks, right? Like, I killed him because he was an asshole, like whatever. Like,
shit.
Abel was actually the good brother, but
No, I love how you just said, he's kind of an asshole, I'm just going to kill him. It's like, okay, well, let's try that again. And let's say today's age. You're like, yeah, you know what, Matt, you're a fucking asshole. Let me just kill you real quick. Like, that's fine.
Well, no, obviously there was a lot of jealousy there because Abel was the breadwinner and Cain was not. So, there was a lot of...
He was a mooch.
There was a lot of jealousy there, so that's obviously why Cain had killed Abel. But, when God had offered these angels for him to repent, he rebuffed it and said, no, I'm good. So Michael, who was one of the angels, when denied, cursed Cain and his children to fear his living flame like no other. And Raphael cursed Cain and his children to fear the dawn, and as the sun rays would burn them like Michael's hot holy fire. And Uriel then cursed Cain and his children to cling to the darkness, drink only blood, eat only ashes, and be frozen at the point of death, cursed so that all they touched would crumble into nothing.
I mean, that right there just sounds like the origin story of what a vampire would be. Right there.
Yeah, basically like to fear fire. They would get burned by the sun, and they drink only blood and are frozen at the point of death, which is kind of where they're undead.
Right.
So after the experience, Cain became officially awakened, possessing the following disciplines: celerity. There it is.
Never heard of that term before.
I've never heard of that one, but look it up, everybody.
I'm gonna look it up, but go for it.
Potence, which I'm assuming
potence,
is we all know that. Fortitude, obfuscate. These words.
These are interesting words they're using for this.
These are interesting words, man. Obfuscate. You have to look that one up too, John.
All right.
Dominate, presence, protean, animalism, aspects. I've never heard of any of these.
Okay, hold on. What was the one you just wanted me to look up? So I got celerity up.
Celerity.
So I'll tell you what celerity means. Celerity is...
We're going to be learning it today.
Swiftness of movement.
So there you go. So swiftness of movement.
So which one? What else you want me to look up real quick?
How about obfuscate?
Obfuscate? All right, let's see.
So with all of these, while he's looking it up, all of these kind of disciplines, Cain became aware of the path of blood and the final path from which all paths stem. And he basically broke his bond with Lilith and left her in the land of Nod. And that's kind of where all the vampires after Cain, which are his children, are Canaanites.
I'm sorry, Canaanites?
Canaanites, because they're like...
Oh, descendants, okay.
Descendants of Cain, they're vampires. So when you become a vampire, you become kind of this Canaanite because he's the dark father.
All right, so let's see here real quick. So I'm
assuming it has something to do with...
Obfuscate, yeah. So it says render obscure, unclear, or unintelligible.
That's what I was thinking. How about aspects?
Well, I'll tell you, let's see. Well, I know what... So I got protean real quick. Tending or able to change frequently or easily.
Okay. That would be like vampires changing into bats or dogs or, Well,
let's see. Aspects.
Aspects.
Let's see. Interesting. This is mentioning ancient Rome.
That's probably not the word.
Well, no, it's AUSPEX. Yeah. So this is saying. It's kind of weird. Oh,
yeah, we can move on.
Well, hold on. Augur.
Augur.
That's literally what it says. I don't really know. That's a weird ass word. I think.
Yeah.
It literally says right here, the term is thrown around a lot in stories, but I'm not sure if it's ever defined in concrete terms. No shit. So I think they just used the word to, fuck people up a little bit, I guess. I don't know. It's a weird one.
Well, when you look it up the AI in Google basically says an auspex was a priest or religious official in ancient Rome who interpreted omens to guide decisions in public policy.
Yeah, so this is also saying a soothsayer.
So it's a basic. Basically, it's he can interpret
a prophet. I don't know.
Omens. Basically, yeah, that's what it is.
Anyways,
we'll leave it at that.
I'm gonna go to Count Dracula because you already did all that.
Yeah, go for that.
All right, so Count Dracula, right? We already know. If you haven't heard of him, my God, I don't know what to tell you. I guess we're both gonna have to smack you because I don't know what to tell you at this point.
If you don't know Dracula at this point,
it's pretty damn ridiculous in my mind. But anyway, so of course in popular culture, Count Dracula is from Bram Stoker, which again we've already talked about from the 1897 novel of Dracula, right? And is often seen as an archetype or typal vampire and has inspired countless portrayals of vampires in fiction. While not literally the father of all vampires, he is a dominant figure in modern vampire mythos. So he can, again, control other vampires. Again, he can also create other vampires by biting and then draining their blood. That's what I was mentioning before, about that.
Yeah.
Has a hypnotic, telepathic, and illusionary, abilities. So again, making you think that, something's real, but it's not really there, kind of a deal.
Yep.
He can defy gravity, right? So basically floating, right? So you usually see a lot of vampires floating instead of just walking. And then again, shapeshift, right? So basically going from a form of a bat.
So Protean. Yes, we're learning today, guys.
Protean, boys and girls. So then a large dog.
Yeah, in the book, he does become a bat and a large dog, and then he uses like the kind of
the fog and mist. I could see that, but
Yeah.
the large dog I was a little confused on. But okay,
Yeah, a large dog. It's realistically like a wolf. You know what I mean? Like,
I understand that, but I didn't think they had the ability to kind of like do that per se. You know what I mean? Because I would have thought human form or ish to
yeah, he does
a
that.
bat. I didn't. Well, him sure, but everyone else, no. I don't think they would be able to do that.
So yeah, we're already kind of on Count Dracula, which he debuted in the novel 1897. A lot of the portrayals. One of the very, very earliest was Bela Lugosi. That was 1931. And I think probably the more popular one that everybody would know was Gary Oldman in Bram Stoker's Dracula, which was 92.
I didn't realize they were Gary Oldman. There we go. Which that's a weird last name, especially when you're a young guy like that, at first.
Yeah. I think obviously Bela Lugosi's in 1931. At the time, it was probably like pretty scary.
Yeah,
but if you watch it today, it's kind of like, what is this shit?
Well, it's kind of like, what the fuck am I watching?
Bela Lugosi was very, very popular in a lot of those movies. But Gary Oldman, like Bram Stoker's Dracula, if you haven't seen the movie, like you need to see it because it's really like one of the, like Dracula is probably one of the more famous vampires, at least in pop culture. Like Marvel has used Dracula.
Yeah, to a degree.
There's a few wrestlers that were based. Gangrel was pretty much straight out of like, Vampire the Masquerade, which is like this kind of storytelling D&D type book.
It's funny how you mention Edward Cullen in the Twilight series.
Well, I do first mention Lestat Delane.
Oh, right. I was just saying. I just thought it was
totally
funny.
skipped over that one.
I sure did, buddy, because I saw the Twilight and I was like, yeah, there you go, buddy. I knew you were gonna throw that in there.
I loved the Anne Rice novels because I've read the Vampire Chronicles when I was in high school.
Oh, did you now? Did you do a book report on it too?
No, I didn't do a fucking book report.
Well, how fucking dare you? You piece of shit.
But the novel initially, Interview with the Vampire, was 1976. And we, if you know anything about Interview with the Vampire, we know Tom Cruise was Lestat in Interview with the Vampire. And Sam Reed was in the TV series, which was 2022, which was okay. It was an okay series.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, man.
But he was, with Lestat, like it was much more. It was different from Dracula because he was much more charismatic. The character was a lot more complex. He's kind of both a hero and a villain. So Lestat really brought like a modern, more like kind of emotional take on vampires, where you were almost like for him. Okay. Queen of the Damned, which is one of my like favorite Anne Rice like movies. I both like it, and there's reasons I don't. If you want to know why I don't, you can message me because I'm not going to go there. But I really, really loved like the portrayal in that movie.
Okay.
One interesting fact about the movie is Korn actually did the soundtrack.
Okay. That's probably why you liked it, but okay.
But what was interesting about that at the time was Korn was locked into a contract where they could only do so many albums.
So this had to be one of them.
when it came to the soundtrack, because in the movie they're playing the music and singing.
Oh.
And so when it came to the soundtrack, they weren't allowed to sing the tracks. It wasn't, they weren't allowed to do a Korn soundtrack for the movie. So they had different artists come in, like Chester Bennington did one.
Oh no shit, I didn't know that.
The singer from Static X did one. So they had all these different singers come in and do the songs. But if you watch the movie, it's actually like Jonathan Davis that's singing the songs in the actual movie. So it's kind of a neat little nugget there.
Okay, so apparently you're telling me to watch it, man. That's what I'm hearing.
If you haven't seen him, John,
I have not seen it. No, so I guess I need to see it.
I guess you're doing Edward Cullen.
Am I? You know, that's okay. I'll do Edward Cullen and Blade because these two I can do all day long. So I love how Matt is like, I guess you're going to do Twilight. I see.
Well, I mean, you watch it so often.
You know, you keep saying that. I've only watched maybe the thing, once, twice, maybe if that, and I don't even watch it. I really don't. Look, the point is, girls and boys here, you know, and whatever you want to be fucking called, I don't really care at this point. Again, the Twilight series, yes, it was.
I want to be called Mountain Dew.
You know what? You be whatever. You can be Baja Blast for all I give a fuck. All right. You can go copyright yourself on that. So with the Twilight series, right? So I know that, yes, it was a series of books and novels, whatever. Right. And so a lot of girls back in the, mid 2000s, whatever, they're like,
it was really young adult. I mean, yeah,
it was young adult. I would say teenagers to young adult. Okay. Like it was like your 14-year-olds to like 22-ish, maybe whatever. Those are your fan base at the time. Right. So my point is you're looking at this and it was kind of weird to me because when you started watching Twilight, it was like you got these shiny, vampires that are coming out of nowhere and they're just like super fucking fast. They could throw, they could do all kinds of shit. And you're just like,
were you like, Team Edward or Team Jacob, John?
Oh, here we fucking go. Why did you have to bring that up? Out of all the fuck, he's like, are you Team Jacob or Team Edward? Like, which one are you? I don't know. Which one were you? Jacob.
Fucking 100% Jacob.
Jacob all day long. You know what?
I would love to be a giant fucking wolf.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? Fuck Edward, man. Fuck him. I don't care. Jacob all the way, buddy.
I do not want to be a Twilight series vampire and then walk out in the sun and sparkle like a jackass.
Where did that fucking come from? Wait, are you taking a shit? Is it like glittering out of your ass too? Like, what's going on here? What's going on with this series? Anyways, if you haven't seen it, just fucking watch it because I really don't want to.
I mean, if you're a young adult and you're into like Vampire Academy or a lot of those like weird CW shows, then Twilight might be for you.
I mean, Twilight.
If you're like me and you're like, well, fuck that shit. I'd rather watch Underworld or 30 Days of Night or From Dusk Till Dawn. Don't watch that shit because you're going to be disappointed.
You're going to be like, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah.
Now, Matt and I can at least agree on this next one, which is Blade. Now, the only thing we both also can't agree on we do agree, but it's kind of bullshit at the same time, is the whole Blade movie that they're trying to make at some point, which we don't even fucking know when this is supposed to come out. But again, little fun fact, and we've mentioned this before about Blade, okay, is that originally when Marvel was doing their stuff back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and this was before Disney actually ever bought them, Marvel was pretty much bankrupt and they had no other choice. So they were like, you know what, fuck it, we need to make a movie or we're going to go fucking broke and we're never going to be able to do our thing. So they decided to make the Blade movies, as in the 1, 2. Did they?
Blade is so iconic. You know what I mean? Like,
well, hold on, let's get that straight. Wesley Snipes was iconic in this role.
Well, I mean, even in the comic book, I mean,
well, yes, in the comics, yes.
He's still like an iconic character, and it's interesting because like he was really kind of, I think, like one of the first portrayals of like a half vampire, half human. That was that was an actual hunter.
Well, let's all get this straight. He's also one of the, like, besides like, I'm going to say it, Matt, like Falcon and Black Panther. I mean, you're also having another black superhero in a sense. Like you don't see that at the time where when you look at most of
one of the first Marvel movies had a black guy in it.
Wow, that's crazy.
What?
Holy shit. That's crazy, Matt. No, but it's funny that when we mention that, it's because when you look at everybody else in these portrayals, Matt, what color, if we're going to get, if we're looking at race here, how many do you think were black out of this whole entire list?
Besides Blade and Blackula? Probably 2.
Okay, 2, right? So my point is, girls and boys and whatever you want to be called, is that, again, when it came to Blade, right, it was one of those things you're like, holy shit, this is cool. This is amazing.
I mean, Count Von Count was purple, so.
Oh, really? You're going to count drag or I know what you mean. The Count from Sesame Street? Yeah.
Yeah, it's Count Von Count.
Or no, was it Sesame Street?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I couldn't remember where, but yes. Okay.
1, 2,
Anyways, we're going to go there later. No, but like, it's funny with Blade though, is like, right. So it's just crazy to me when you look at somebody like this, you know, it just really gives a new perspective on the whole vampire thing, because like, yes, I know it kind of explains that I think his mother was a vampire, his father wasn't, or something like that. And like, he didn't really grow up in that vampire realm. And like, he grew up with, I can't remember that guy's name. Like, I know in the movie, like, I know, yes, unfortunately, I'm going to say it, Chris Christopherson, the guy who
Whistler.
what was it? What's his name?
In the movie, Chris Christopherson was Whistler.
Whistler?
Whistler.
Was that what his name was? Anyways, I didn't realize that was his name, was the Whistler, but yes. So
Not the Whistler, just Whistler.
Whistler.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. But yes, like, it was kind of like his handler or like his like guardian of some sort.
Like mentor,
guardian, whatever, because he kind of raised him a little bit, because I know his mother, like, I think died in the comics as well, but like kind of in the movie too. But like, no, if you haven't seen Blade, especially in that late 90s, early 2000s, like it's part of the reason why Marvels still exist. And that's the thing where, you know, when you look at Marvel, we're not going to go into Marvel clearly right now, but we're saying that without this, it never would have been now, because there wouldn't have been no Marvel to begin with. But anyways, moving forward here, because I figured Matt's going to take at least the next two.
Yeah, I can take the next two, because the Vampire Diaries I've never watched. So
great, I get to take it because I have no idea.
At least I've seen the original Nosferatu, but it's been many, many years. But I'll go with Celine, who's in the Underworld series. Like her, you know, that style of vampire is really different. If you haven't seen any of the Underworld films, the first one was from 2003.
They made too many movies, in my opinion, but yes.
But a lot of them are good. I mean, if you put them into the Underworld context, they're good. If you're watching it to be like, this is going to be the best movie, no, you're probably going to be disappointed.
I'm just saying. I mean, I know they made a lot.
Kate Beckinsale played a character named Celine. She is a death dealer. And the whole movie basically it's a war between vampires and lycans, which are, you know, we've explained in that, which are werewolves. So her character is known for being, you know, this kind of strong, action-oriented, like, female vampire. And I love the Underworld movies. Like, I think they're, as far as like vampire movies go, like, Underworld is right up there.
I'm not saying it's not.
Even with the werewolves too. Like I think when you look at the mythology that they use in the movie, it's high up on that list.
No, what I'm saying is it's kind of, and I'll say it right now, because I love the Fast and Furious movies, especially up to a certain point. But like, you get to a point where, you know, when you make like 10, 12, I don't know exactly.
I don't think there's that many.
Well, I know there's quite a few. I know there's at least quite a few. I don't know exactly how many there are, but I know there's quite a few of them. And I just think it gets to a point where it's like, where do you stop? You know what I mean? Where do you stop and you say, this is enough? Because it just gets to a point. And I think that's where, okay, you go ahead.
So there were 6.
And we're talking even the newest one, right? We're not talking like whatever.
Well, the newest one was 2016, but yeah. 2003, 2006, 2009.
Okay. So
2011, 2012, and 2016.
Okay. I thought there was more. I really thought there was more. I guess clearly it wasn't. I don't know. I think they should stop with that, because if they went any further, I think it was just, to me, it would be just kind of like overdoing it. You know what I mean? It just gets to a point.
I think with the like I said, with the mythology between the werewolves and the vampires, like that's what I love that they spent more time on. Like, there's very little humans in the movies. Although there are humans in the movie, it's not really focused. Like, I think all the other shit's like more focused on like becoming a vampire, or, you know, feeding on others, or being a straight up horror movie like Fright Night. You know what I mean? Like it's it's not so much of that. It's basically, you're seeing vampires and then you're seeing werewolves and you're seeing them fight. And it's like the werewolves in Underworld are like any other werewolf you've seen before this. So it's like, it's just a cool movie. With Nosferatu, obviously, this movie was made as a silent film in 1922.
Well, this one, like you and I've seen at least the picture.
There is a remake that's coming pretty soon.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but this one, 1922, Vampire Count Orlok. That's FW. What's up with these names? Why do I always have to say them, man?
Fine, I'll say it for you.
Murnau.
So FW Murnau's Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll call it with that.
So Count Orlok is really the earliest portrayal of Dracula in film, and he's played by a guy named Max Schreck, which sounds like a guy from Batman.
Very well could be. Maybe you have to look that up.
It sounds like a guy from Batman. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making shit up.
Maybe.
But Nosferatu was different because he wasn't like your typical like human-looking person. He had very grotesque appearance and was very like sinister, like lurking in the shadows, and he had these like really long fucking fingers.
Well, it was the long fingernails, and he had this like, it looked like two buck teeth, but they were like really, they were like pointed, and I looked,
rabbit teeth, yeah,
and it basically it was kind of like more of a bat, but like an ugly looking, kind of human. Like he kind of had almost a human face, but like again, he had pointy ears. It was like, I know exactly the photo, and I just can't remember all the details, but he's an ugly son of a bitch. I'm just gonna say it right now. It's not like a, hey, I'm attractive like Twilight over here. Like this guy, like he was ugly.
There is a Max Schreck in Batman.
Oh, is there? Maybe it was his son or something.
It was I think the one with the penguin. Batman Returns.
Oh, well then was it the same dude or was it a totally different guy?
Christopher Walken.
Christopher, yeah, what about Christopher Walken?
He played Maximilian Schreck in Batman Returns.
Oh, Jesus. I didn't realize that was the reference. I didn't know that's what you were going with, but okay.
Obviously not the same guy from 1922.
Well, no, clearly, but okay.
Max Schreck was not a character in a Batman movie, but he was an actual actor in 1922 that did silent films, but yes.
Well, there you go. Nice connection there, Matt, and it's funny how it's a Batman movie based on a bat. Matt? Just saying.
We can skip that one if you want to do, because I've only seen like one of the Hotel Transylvania movies.
Oh, that one? Psh,
like all the way at the end.
Yeah, I can do that one. That one's easy.
Yeah.
That one's easy peasy. Now, yeah, Hotel Transylvania, right? So this is kind of a newer, like animated kind of movies and whatnot. I mean, so this is like more Adam Sandler, right? So it's Adam Sandler, Kevin James, and a few others. Go ahead, do your little cannibal pass. Well, that was weak sauce, man. That was weak. Oh,
there it is.
There it is. Anyways, now we'll go back to the main point.
Hey, we're back.
So, Hotel Transylvania, right? So, like, yes, Selena Gomez is the voice of Mavis Dracula. So, yes, Dracula is played by
Adam Sandler.
And then his father, actually, in later series, he actually is like the OG. He was like, I don't know, I can't remember his name, but that's not the point. Basically, his father in the movies was kind of like Nosferatu. Like he had that ugly looking face and it looked kind of creepy. But anyways, so like this is more of like of course,
it's kind of like a friendly,
it's a kids movie.
Yeah, it's a friendly take.
But it's interesting because like, I mean, I
falls in love with a normie.
A normie or a humie,
normies.
you fucking piece of shit. No. Anyways, no. It's definitely a kid's movie. I mean, of course, adults can definitely get into it. I mean, I think there's 4 movies, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not too bad. I mean, if you like watching that kind of stuff and it's kind of kid friendly, whatever. I mean, I know at some point they meet like Van Helsing or the some of the characters and like it's just again, it's a bunch of kids movies. If you like that kind of stuff, that's up to you. But again, it's a lot of animated stuff. But I think honestly, it's not too bad overall. Yeah. That's just me.
So I'm gonna fly through the next 2. So Eric Northman, if you've ever seen True Blood, he is one of the main characters in the show. He actually debuted in The Southern Vampire Mysteries, which was a 2001 novel. And then later on, I believe it was HBO, did True Blood TV series. He's portrayed by Alexander Skarsgård. And he's a centuries-old Viking vampire. Obviously became a fan favorite because, well, it's Alexander Skarsgård. And he has this like shirt off almost the entire show. You know what I mean? So it's like he just became a fan favorite. He's known for pretty much being like ruthless and charismatic, and he's one of the more popular characters.
So I love how you said you wanted to take this next one, Count. You know, it's like this one's just more of a, again, if you've seen Sesame Street.
Yeah, he's the Count, 1972. Obviously he's a puppet.
One.
But yeah, he helped children. I think they actually removed the Count because they thought he was too scary.
Which is bullshit because, come on, man, he's not scary.
But I mean, he was a vampire. He helped children learn to count. So like when they did episodes on numbers, they would take stuff and he'd one.
Right. And so like, it's funny how like him and like the Cookie Monster could have been. I think they revamped Cookie Monster and all that too, but
one cookie.
I don't know. It's just interesting how you got a kid show that, you know, they're just like, oh, he's too scary. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I mean, especially
it's probably like just today's society where they're like, no, that's too scary. And 1970s and 1980s, they didn't give a fuck. They were like, this probably isn't scary enough.
I'm going to say this. Well, I'm going to say this real quick. I've seen what, Big Bird. Well, I think you and I saw this. We were joking around. We were looking at Sesame Street or whatever because I think we were trying to figure out something for Wyatt. Both him and I were looking at Big Bird from back in the 70s, or at least, I don't know, 60s or 70s. And this motherfucker.
It looked like he smoked meth or something.
He did something. I mean, weird. Sesame Street back in the day was some rough shit. Now it's like a whole new ball game. But like back in the day, it was rough, man. So, I mean, I can only imagine what the Count looked like. Especially around that time. I mean, did he look the way he did, or was he quite different?
I mean, if any, and we'll move on to like the movies and the shows in a minute here, but like, I'll just throw this out there. If any of the Muppets were probably the scariest, it wouldn't be the Count. It would be Grouch.
Oscar the Grouch.
Oscar the Grouch. Like, it would be him because he lives in a fucking trash can.
And who wants to stay with that guy? I mean, shit, he's got like, all kinds of diseases, man.
He is a homeless puppet, a homeless monster.
Living in a goddamn trash
who's
can.
Grumpy as shit.
Sounds like Matt.
Except I'm not homeless, John.
Well, true. But you act just like Oscar the Grouch, buddy. That's the name.
I would love to. I would love to just be on the street and be like, where the fuck are you going?
Hey, piece of shit. Come here.
Piece of fucking dog shit.
Hey, get off my lawn, bitch.
So yeah, those are some of the vampires. They're not all, it's not a complete list, obviously, because we don't have time for that shit. But those are some of kind of the main vampires in pop culture. There's more movies that we could mention. Some of them we've already mentioned. Like I said, Nosferatu, that comes out at probably sometime, I'm assuming, this month. If I was going to do a Nosferatu movie, it would come out in October.
No, but I understand. I've never seen the trailer for it. If it ever did have a trailer for it, I'd have to see it now because I'm just curious. I don't know. That just seems weird to me. And then,
but Renfield was.
I did see that. I did actually see that movie. It's not too bad.
It's not too bad.
It's with wow, it's one of your favorite guys, Matt. Come on. Who is it, Matt? Come on. Who is it?
Mr. Ghost Rider.
Yeah, who's Mr. Ghost Rider? Nicolas Cage. There we go. Because I couldn't.
You tell me, John.
I just told you it was Nicolas Cage because I had a brain fart there for a second because I was like, come on. Well, there it is. Yeah, so Nicolas Cage, I mean, his version was a little weird. I'm not going to lie. It was just like, it was kind of like the Nosferatu, but like, kind of the, I don't know, humanish, like, again, and I don't know. You want to see it, then go see it.
It was a comedy movie. I mean, you have to kind of take that for what it is. What I found interesting, and I learned of what the significance of the movie was after I watched it, was The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which is actually just a chapter of Bram Stoker's Dracula. But I did not know this until I started watching it. I knew it had to do something with vampires.
Okay.
but I did not know that it was actually like one of the chapters in Bram Stoker's.
How long is this movie?
It's a, I don't know, typical movie, 2 hour, probably 2 hours.
I love how a 2-hour movie is based on one chapter of his book.
It's literally just the voyage of the ship back to England, I think, wherever the ship was headed back to.
No, I just found that interesting. How it's just.
I mean, in Bram Stoker's Dracula, obviously they show the ship, but it's not like a huge thing. Like he basically just murders because they're transporting his body back. Back to wherever he was from.
Yeah.
But he kills everybody on the ship, and the ship just kind of like sails into port. Like,
great.
But I did really, really enjoy that movie. There's a couple here that are probably on my favorite list. One's a favorite of all time list, but one is like kind of because I've watched it so many times and I've really do enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is Lost Boys.
Okay.
And my movie, From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yes, I know that.
It's one of my all-time favorites, like Quentin Tarantino, George Clooney, Salma Hayek. Like it's one of those movies like I could watch it all the time and not ever get tired of it.
Okay.
The show is actually it's fairly good. I mean, they could have made some changes with it, I think, but the show that they did, I believe, Stars. It might be Stars.
Maybe.
But the show is pretty decent. Yeah, but From Dusk Till Dawn, I mean, fuck the sequels because the sequels are stupid. I mean, I think the second one or the third one has like John Bon Jovi in it.
Oh, what the fuck? That'd be a weird person to throw in there.
It's kind of weird. But there are so many. Abigail, which is kind of a newer one. I did kind of enjoy that one. As a horror movie, like I did kind of enjoy that one. Dracula 2000, that's kind of a classic one.
You weren't going to say Buffy.
I'm getting there. There.
Okay.
Interview with the Vampire. I think we talked about that one.
You did.
I think more interesting one besides Buffy, because Buffy was different. Was 30 Days of Night, because a lot of like what these movies have done, like Fright Night and Lost Boys and Abigail and Nosferatu and even like Interview with the Vampire and From Dusk Till Dawn, Dracula 2000, Fright Night, all these movies have a certain aspect of what vampires are, like the charismatic, the different, styles, but 30 Days of Night was literally just showing them as like animalistic and just crazy, like not really like human type characters. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting how they would, in this particular movie would do that instead of like, kind of doing it with some of the others, but
I mean, they had crazy ass, like, you would think vampires like, oh, the 2 teeth and, they suck the blood. No, these vampires like had a mouth like Baraka. They almost
like Mortal Kombat.
They almost had a mouth full of teeth like that, and they weren't just biting and drinking.
So they were like destroying.
They were literally destroying and ripping and eating. Like they were vicious.
Okay, interesting. That's an interesting take to do,
And the books are actually pretty good too. Like 30 Days of Night, even though it's not the greatest movie on the planet Earth, the graphic novel is much better. And there's a series of books that they release kind of later on that are actually pretty decent.
Okay,
man.
Oh, come on. And then, so I know we talked about some of these, but like the ones I would say that we probably didn't really talk about, I know Matt and I had a conversation real quick, is a show called Being Human.
Yes, Being Human. I can honestly say I didn't watch the UK version.
No.
But I did watch the US version, and I did appreciate what they did. It's kind of like when you're watching The Office. Like you don't really watch the UK version of The Office.
No, you just say I don't want to fucking shit.
But you watch The Office. It's kind of the same thing with this show. Like they made a UK version, and then the US was like, oh yeah, like we can do that too.
And we can make it better.
And then, you know, so the US made one. It's basically a vampire and a werewolf living with a ghost, and they all kind of live together, and there's things that occur
right throughout
throughout the show, and it's a fairly decent show. Nosferatu took a little bit to get to where it was going. It was kind of an okay show. Buffy the Vampire Slayer did have a show. I don't know if it was very successful, but the one show that was successful, which actually spawned from the movie, was Angel. I never watched Angel because I was not really into, you know.
Yeah, neither did I.
David Boreanaz.
Well, and then the show that you talked about, and then you said you need to watch it because you're a piece of shit for not watching it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding. Is What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, yeah. What We Do in the Shadows. I mean, that's your straight up kind of FX comedy, but it's like, it's one of those shows that it's really fucking stupid, but it's so fucking hilarious at the same time. Like, there's basically these three vampires that are all like, they're all very, very old, and they're living in this really old mansion. And it's just like the hijinks of what they're doing. And they just fucking, they're like the dumbest vampires. Like you could never like these vampires, like they're just so dumb, but they have like such cool personalities. And there's actually a fourth one that lives in the house. And he basically like, he's a different type of vampire where he doesn't drink blood, but he drains like your energy. So he's like, if you've ever known one of those people, and I don't know if I'm one of those people.
Oh, I'd love to hear this, Matt, because then I'll tell you if you are.
I don't know. I guess at times maybe I could be one of those people, but this particular character in the show is one of those characters. Like if you've ever been at work and there's that one person that like always tries to talk to you, and it's just so fucking boring that you're like almost falling asleep when he's talking to you.
You're just like, yeah, it's a cool.
That's the type of vampire that he is. Like he'll like talk to people and like kind of like siphon the energy from them. And it's just, he's like the most boring guy.
But I'm assuming that's on purpose, though. I mean,
it's completely on purpose because he feeds on the energy, and like when he's talking, like it goes to like his face, and like his eyes are all glowing blue, and he's like, you know, like
he's like, I'm boring.
It's hard. I mean, it's really hard to explain. I mean, it's not like your children's comedy show, like you're watching like, you know, prime time, you know, a comedy show like that. Like,
okay,
this show can get kind of raunchy, and it's wicked funny.
What Matt's saying is that I needed to watch the show.
Yeah, you just have to watch it. One of my favorites on here is True Blood. Like, I love True Blood. It's a show that was like, I think it was 2008. But it's a really good show. It's worth definitely the watch. It unfortunately it did end, but all shows do, I guess, you know, at some point.
Yeah, I mean, so I was going to say it's just kind of a quick little fact. I'm pretty sure, but Buffy the reason why I'm going to say this, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like I know the movie, which, yes, I know it created the show afterwards, but from my understanding though, especially in the 90s, like it was definitely, and I'm pretty sure it was like early 2000s too, but like it was a pretty iconic kind of like show for that time frame, because like, especially because it was in that hype of, you know, like we've said before, where the 90s and that kind of like early 2000s.
Well, I mean, you had like
a hype for it.
I mean, you had like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I mean, I think probably around the same time, it was like Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, so I mean,
like those two.
You had this idea of like this really, you know, kind of preppy high school kid.
Yeah.
Becoming, you know, a vampire slayer.
Right.
And then, you know, obviously throughout the early part of the movie, it's like, she doesn't think vampires exist, and then all of a sudden, vampires are attacking,
randomly
trying to kill her because she's a slayer. And that's, you know, the movie in '92 was popular, but that's also because at the time vampires were in, they were a thing,
right?
And then that's where, you know, Angel, who was a character in the movie,
in Buffy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is that? Oh, so that okay, gotcha. All right.
Angel was kind of the spin-off to his character and the things that he was doing. I never watched Angel, to be honest, but like I said, I wasn't really into like the David
the other shit. Like, yeah.
Angel kind of would have been your Vampire Diaries in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like that was really, if you were going to go with comparison, like that's really, it was like Angel and Charmed were like
together.
They were like the same type of show, but obviously Charmed was, a lot of women watched it, but a lot of men watched it for particular reasons.
I wonder why, man.
I'd never watched Charmed either, so don't look at me.
So my question is, when you said the Blade series, was it
there was a Blade TV show.
Was there an animated show?
Oh, no, it was a live action TV show.
Was it? What? When was this shit? As I don't remember seeing this shit.
There was a Blade TV show.
What, early 90s? It wasn't with Wesley Snipes, was it?
No, it wasn't. I'm looking at who was.
Yeah, I'm curious because I had no idea.
It was 2006. And do you know who played Blade in this?
Oh God, I really don't want to know, but I feel like I'm gonna get it told anyway. So okay, who was it?
Sticky Fingers. You know where Sticky Fingers is from?
It sounds familiar, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. So why don't you enlighten me, Matt? Because I know I'm probably going to regret hearing about it. So
I'll do you one better. It's a little hip hop group.
Oh, good.
From the, I would say 90s.
Okay.
And they do a song called Slam. Slam. Da, 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 da,
oh God, hold on.
Let the boys be boys.
Yeah, I know. I'm just, who the fuck is it? Just fucking tell me.
Onyx.
That's who plays.
That's who plays Blade in that show.
And this was a live action show in 2006. How long did it last for? Like 3 episodes? Like what? I don't think it lasted very long. If I'm taking a guess here.
I'm not entirely sure. Well, I do see at least a 9, so there's a 12.
Oh, God.
Let's see.
You're saying there's 12 episodes so far?
There's 12 episodes.
Oh, so it lasted for 1 season. And it got canceled. I wonder why, Matt.
Well, I didn't say it was a great show.
Oh, I'm just saying. I'm
just saying that it existed.
I never heard of it. Never once have I heard of a fucking live action actual show based on Blade.
So apparently this is what had occurred.
Oh, great.
The network didn't want to cancel it because it was on at the time Spike TV. Do you remember Spike TV?
Yes, I do.
So the network didn't want to cancel it, but Spike TV was a young network at the time, and the price of making Blade was too high. So they weren't able to do another season of it.
Okay, so because of money, and because I love... Wait. Hey, a question for you, Matt. If we're going to talk about, demographics of individuals, who was normally watching Spike TV? Go ahead. I'm curious. Who normally would watch Spike TV back in the day?
Like, you're talking like gender, or you?
No, I'm not talking about gender. I'm talking. I'm going with race right now. Who normally would watch Spike TV?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, anybody could watch Spike TV.
No, I understand, but if it was based, you're saying that really, you're really not going to say it. You're not saying like black, individuals or people like that you wouldn't be watching that kind of shit, especially on the like Blade series like that.
Well, I mean, it wasn't like necessarily like you're watching like the BBC, or you're watching like something like.
No, I get what you're saying.
Like a black network, like Spike TV was made for basically like I'm going to say like your male audience.
Well, yes,
and that's where a lot of the program is, but like Spike TV is actually a Viacom, and if you know anything about networks, the parent company to Viacom is Paramount.
Oh, interesting.
So that's sort of probably where I mean, I don't know if Blade exists on that, on that right now, but
I would be very curious if it was. because I'm wondering if you typed it in, if you could actually even find a way to even watch it currently.
You can watch it on Apple TV right now for $1.99.
Oh, hold on, each episode, right?
Probably.
Yeah, so you're spending, I don't know, what's it, what, $2? So 12. So
Yeah, I mean, right now
$24 on a season.
Right now, all it says is Apple TV for $1.99.
Yeah, right. You're gonna be paying for every fucking episode, so you're paying $25.
I think it's like it says probably like $2 every episode. So you're
$25. There you go. Have fun with that.
$25 where you can buy it probably for $2 at a discount DVD store.
Oh, you mean, or go for the 5 and under thing for Walmart? You know what I mean? Like you just go pick it up at that 5 and under thing. There you go. You can go find that. Anyways, guys, I know we've been talking about vampires here and talking about Halloween stuff.
Just real quick.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Before we end, vampire or werewolf, which would you prefer to be if you had to choose between one of the two?
Oh, that's a tough one. Because it's either I have to basically live off of blood for the rest of my life and suck people and, doing all that shit.
Whoa.
Did I say suck people? He's like, whoa.
That's
He's like, that's a little too far there, buddy.
That's going a little too far.
Okay, my bad. Let me rephrase the words here. Okay, my bad. Hold on. He's like, okay, so how do I fuck this not up? Okay, so he's like, okay, so sucking blood from an individual to maintain, my life essence, basically. But I mean, having those cool powers, flying, that kind of thing. Or I deal with the fact that every full moon, I got to now go into being a werewolf or a lycan, depending on the circumstances. That's a tough one, Matt. I mean, I guess... Honestly, I mean, it feels like werewolves would be more painful, but I mean, it's also kind of cool because you don't have to worry about certain things, but then you turn into a ravenous monster. It kind of, both of them don't really sound appetizing. It's like you either do one or the other, and it really doesn't help in the situation.
You got to pick one or the other. Vampire or werewolf?
Man, you're making this tough.
I know. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. And I can't wait to hear your fucking answer because you're going to have no choice either. I think maybe werewolf. I guess if I didn't have any other choice, I guess werewolf.
Okay.
Let me guess, you're going to go the opposite.
Well, I mean, so here's the thing. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to drinking blood. No, I don't do that right now, and I'm not a serial killer. But
of course you're not. Yeah.
I don't think I'd be opposed to doing it if I had to. The problem would be, I mean, where we live, I'm sure it's the same probably in Nashua as it is in Manchester. Like, I don't understand why everything closes at like fucking 10.
Same. I don't either. It's because
But that would be, I think that would be like the tricky part of being a vampire is that everything is closed and I'm only like really suitable at night. So that would be the drawback for that, at least.
Yeah.
As a werewolf, it really depends on if I'm able to control the transformations or if I'm not. If I'm not, then no, I would not want to be a werewolf because I wouldn't want to wake up in the middle of a field covered in blood.
Well, same.
Like next to a skunk because I just fucking ate the thing.
Well, that's what I mean. It's tough in that situation.
If I could control it,
then yeah.
And I didn't change like with the full moon and
so you're saying more of like a Jacob in a sense.
There were things like I could control when I shifted. I would only have to worry about when there was a full moon.
So it kind of sounds like you want to be more of a Jacob.
But then I go back to being, if I was a vampire, could I deal? I mean, I wouldn't need food, so I wouldn't need to do that. True. I wouldn't need a car.
I mean, you really wouldn't need to sleep.
I'd sleep during the day, but true. Like, because I wouldn't really be around, but I would live forever.
I mean, it's not like you can't live forever as a werewolf.
No, but I mean, you probably could still grow older and, but
I mean,
I would lean more towards vampire, to be honest.
I figured you would. I think and that's the tough part because it really depends on the situation. Like I
think it depends really on the mythology.
Well, I think
because if I'm a vampire and I look like what they look like from
Nosferatu?
That or from Dusk Till Dawn,
yeah,
where they were like these little bat vampire things. Like, fuck that. No.
Okay, so
I would want to look like how I look.
Would you like? Hold on. Would you like to look like Twilight?
No,
be all
fuck that.
glittery and shit. You know, I mean,
No.
why not, man? Why can't you be
No.
Edward, man? I thought you'd be an Edward fan.
No.
He's like, nah, fuck that shit. He's like, nah. He's like, I'd rather look like Blade, man, than anything.
If it came to, you look like Twilight, no, I would rather be a werewolf.
Yeah, I'd rather be a werewolf.
But that's where I say, like, I think for me, it depends on the mythology, and
that's the thing, man. I mean, that's kind of the same with me. I think it really depends on, like, can I do certain things? Because if I can't, then yeah, I'm going to lean towards the other. I just thought maybe, werewolf, I was like, yeah, you're right. I mean, thinking about the transformations, yeah, I'd probably lean towards the vampire, but then it's like, okay, well, now if I'm a vampire, what am I going to look like? Am I going to look the same? Am I going to have to do half the shit? Like if I now have to, deal with the fact that basically I got to basically have blood on hand, or have transfusions or do I need to live near a fucking blood bank? Like, do I need to go, at least the only benefit is my wife is a paramedic, so at least she could probably get me blood from time to time. Other than that, it's like, you kind of like hit or miss.
yeah.
But anyways, guys, gals, everybody else in between, we appreciate you guys. We love the fact that you guys are hopefully listening and, sharing this word out and everything else, especially like, on YouTube and trying to send it out on, all the other.
I do have a quick shout out because I am working this month at Fright Kingdom in Nashua,
which I know because it's right around the corner for me. So yeah,
it's all indoors. Come check it out. Like that's my kind of shout out for the month of October. Come check it out. You probably won't see me because I wear a mask unless you recognize my body type. But
so the only thing is since I've known Matt, this is a little fun fact. I've actually never gone to the haunt. I've never once visited the haunt because of course he would recognize me. Problem is I feel like if I went to the haunt and he saw me, he'd be like, I'm going to get this motherfucker. I'm going to fucking scare the living shit out of him. And I'd be like, actually, you see that? You see that little thing right back there? That little like tube thing? I want you to look real quick. You see that? Okay. Now imagine that either as like a metal pole or a fucking machete or something like that. Yeah, I'd be stabbing the shit out of you if you tried to do that shit. I wouldn't hold back. He's like, we are. I'm like, yeah, no, fuck you.
Come. It's all indoors, and tickets are they're decently priced, and it's a good time. So you can come on out and.
Come on out, let me scare you.
Let us scare the shit out of you and
piss your pants. Shit all over the place. It's fine, no problem.
Hey, it happens. It happens.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me people shit and piss all the time?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Just on the floor? Okay, whatever you say.
Well, they're not pulling their pants down and shitting on the floor. Like they're not getting swifty.
They're gonna get swifty, boys and girls. No. Anyways, guys,
don't get swifty in the haunted house.
Anyways, you guys are great. Keep it up. Share the word. Let's do it next time.
But our merch.
Oh, but yes, get the merch and everything else. But until fucking next time, boys and girls.
Stay geeky.